Welcome to the 99 Podcast, a ministry of Crossroads Grace Community Church in Manteca, California. I'm Heather Mahoney, and I'm excited that you're joining us for Season 2 of the 99 Podcast. We hope it challenges you and creates a hunger to dive deeper into Scripture so you can know Jesus better. Hey 99 listeners, hey, we've got something really exciting for you today, and we didn't even let you know it was coming. We've got our very own Pastor Brian, and we have pre-recorded a special episode for you.
What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing good in the middle of your summer when you listen to this.
Oh yeah, and I'm excited because just as Brian mentioned, we are dropping this in the middle of summer when he's smack dab in the middle of a sabbatical. So I hope you're ready. I hope you're excited. And don't you worry, we've got our normal episode coming out this week as well, based off this week's sermon. So don't forget to check into this. Brian, should I start with 10 rapid fire questions in honor of your 10 years at Crossroads?
Well, that'd be super fun. Let's bring it on and see if I can keep up with you here. So there'll be rapid fire. I'm not going to long time. So here we go.
1, what are you most passionate about?
Jesus.
Ooh. 2, describe your ideal weekend.
I'm up in Tahoe on the beach watching my kids on those paddle boards while I don't have to because I'm terrible at it.
And that means it's summertime?
Yes.
And not
winter. And Shree's there as well, also, yes.
And she's laughing at you from her paddleboard. Number 3,
yes.
What's a book or movie that you'd recommend?
I am a huge old school, love The Shawshank Redemption. I love that movie 100%. And then the book that I would recommend is Developing the Leader Within You by John Maxwell. It is the best leadership book I've ever read, and I read it often.
Okay. Noted. Number 4, what is a skill you have you're proud of? And maybe I should note that's not obvious because we already know that you can preach and you can play baseball.
I think I've grown into this, that I like the fact that I can sing, and I really enjoy singing, and I love doing worship, and I love all those things. So I think that'd be something I'm pretty proud of.
Nice. 5, what's your favorite way to relax?
What is that? No, I'm just kidding.
I wondered if you'd have an answer.
So my favorite thing to do, believe it or not, so I grew up in South Dakota, so I didn't get to do this. I didn't realize this was my favorite until I moved to California, and that is taking a nap on the beach in the sand under a tent, where you can kind of create your own little pillow with sand, and then you dig out a little bit lower. So anyway, yeah. So I love it on the beach.
Oh yeah, and there's no other. Your agenda is to be at the beach, so then you
Yes.
probably are able to embrace the nap.
And I have natural white noise behind. It's the best ever.
Okay.
So, yes.
Number 6, what's your favorite household item to use?
This is going to sound crazy, but the vacuum. I love vacuuming at our house. We don't have a lot of carpet anymore. It's all wood floors now, but I love a good vacuum. That it just sucks. I love it.
Nice. Actually, I thought you were going to say blender because you're a big smoothie shake guy.
Yeah.
But I like that you chose something I didn't expect.
Yes.
Number 7, if you could travel anywhere that is not Tahoe, where would you go?
Oh, you
already said Tahoe.
You took the air right out of my sails. And I've never been there, but I think I would really like to go there, and that would be Australia, to be able to see Australia. Maybe box a kangaroo. I don't know, just go crazy or something. But yeah, I want to check out Australia someday.
Okay, nice. Number 8, with the context of your living on the West Coast of the United States, so our problems maybe look different to other people's problems, but what's one non-essential problem in your world that you would like to solve?
Well, I'm going to go really lighthearted with this, and this is figuring out why people don't put their carts back at Target. Like, I would love to figure that problem out.
Please, thank you.
Although I will say this, I have realized the safest place to park in the Target parking lot is right by the cart depot thing, because no one ever goes there.
They're empty.
It's empty, and no one ever gets there. So
nailed it. Number 9, what's one non-leader pastor related goal of yours?
So one of my goals is I would love to write a book, and that is just like a goal that's just kind of been out there, and I haven't reached that yet. So that would be, I don't know, it's somewhat pastoral because I wouldn't want to be a Christian book, but I'd love to write a book. That'd be my favorite.
No, that's good, and you don't have to be able to write a book to be a lead pastor. So
that's true.
It is that way. And then lastly, number 10, what is something you're currently learning or wanting to learn?
I want to learn how to. Well, something fun. I could have went deep there, but I'm gonna do something fun though. So one thing that I would love to learn how to do is like woodwork better. Like Pastor Ed is amazing at that.
He's good.
He builds everything, but I'd love to be able to do that better. And yeah, so that'd be super fun to do. But you have to get all the tools, and you can't like cut your fingers off and like all the stuff. So I got a lot of learning to do.
It's an investment to be able, I think, to become good at that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I loved all of your answers, but now to why we're really here. We would like to look back on your 10 years of being the lead pastor here at Crossroads, what it looked like. What are some lessons you've learned? I'm going to pass the mic to you, so take it away.
Well, as I was thinking about this and thinking about 10 years as the lead pastor, but almost 20 years in ministry in general, there's a lot that's there. And so I think just real briefly, how did I become a lead pastor? I think that's important to know. So grew up in South Dakota. Baseball was everything for me. I went to the University of Nebraska to play baseball and finished at Augustana College in South Dakota. Played professional baseball for a couple of years, got engaged in the field, and then quickly moved to Chicago to be in health and fitness. Ran health and fitness centers for over about 8 years or so, 7 or 8 years. So God called me out of that. I became the first campus pastor at our church in Chicago, Parkview Christian Church. And so I was a campus pastor there. God called me out of that to become a lead pastor after I was there for almost 8 years also. And now I've been here at Crossroads, taking over for the wonderful Pastor Mike Moore, the founding pastor of Crossroads, and have been here 10 years, which is crazy. So as I look back on this, I think some of it is lessons that I've learned directly as a lead pastor, but some of it is just lessons that I've learned as being a Christian.
Okay.
And being a leader and being a part of teams and realizing there's so much more that I've yet to learn that I need to learn, but here's some lessons. So number one, if God calls, answer. Heather, I think you appreciate this too, that God had a calling on your life and you answered that call. Pastor Jim Todd was a big part of that. And for me, it was my youth pastor, Pastor Bob Cole. And he once told me when I was 14 that one day I see that you're going to reach thousands of people for Jesus. And that was the middle of a small church in South Dakota. And I had no idea what that meant. And I just that planted that seed. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, I was in the baseball world. I was in the business world. And God called me out of business into Parkview, into church world. But it took me 2.5 years to actually answer that call. And I lovingly remember dry heaving in the parking lot of my job that I hated until I finally gave it up and said, okay, I'll do that. And I jumped into full-time ministry at Parkview, and then God was calling me to be a lead pastor, and I fought him for 2 years because I was like, I love where I'm at, and eventually said yes, and that's what brought me to Crossroads. And so I look back on that, and I wish I would have answered those calls quicker. I wish I would have said yes to this call in my life a little bit earlier, because if I had a regret, and the regret is that I didn't do it sooner. And I often wonder, like, gosh, what would have been if I would have redeemed those 8 years and had that been in ministry instead of business. But then I'm really quick to look back and say, I think the well-roundedness of my life, of being able to know business and know this and know that to add to ministry, has actually strengthened it. So I even though I regret not being able to do it longer than I will be able to when I'm done, but I also don't regret the experience that I have too. And one of the things in my life verse is, as far as my ministry verse, is actually Amos chapter 7. I know a lot of you memorized a lot of books out of.
I haven't heard many life verses out of Amos.
Yeah, so Amos chapter 7 verses 14 through 15. I love it. It says, Amos answered Amaziah. Now Amos is a prophet, and so Amos answered Amaziah, I was neither a prophet nor the son of a prophet, but I was a shepherd, and I also took care of sycamore fig trees. But the Lord took me from tending the flock and said to me, go prophesy to my people Israel. Now here's why I love that, because Amos is obviously a famous prophet. He's got a book in the Bible. He got that going for him. But Amaziah is a guy that was kind of talking trash to him, and he was trying to distract him from what God had done. And so Amos is like, listen, dude, I wasn't a prophet. My dad wasn't a prophet. I'm just a shepherd. I took care of sycamore fig trees. God said, be a pastor, be a prophet. So I'm going to do that. If you got a problem with it, take it up with him. And so for me, that was kind of my call. You know, when people say, well, how could you possibly? Well, you know what? God called me to do it. I was a baseball player. I was a dumb jock. I was this, I was that. But God said, be a pastor. And so I'm going to do that. So I feel like if you can, lesson number one, if God calls you to do something, answer that call, even if it's super scary. So that's number one. Lesson two, over 10 years, your family is actually your number one ministry. there is a lot of people that will say your number one ministry needs to be the church, and you've got to shepherd us, and you've got to do this, and you've got to be at all the things, and you've got to be at the funerals and be at the weddings, and you've got to be at all the events and stuff. And what happens is you see a lot of pastors that will blow up their families because they have no idea who they are and they haven't been around them. And so your family's got to be your number one ministry, I've learned. Pyramid of priorities. Something that we believe in, that we trust in. It's that it's God, spouse, kids, everything else. God laid that on my heart well before I was even lead pastor, and now to be able to lead that to our people is just so humbling. But if I'm not doing that, if I'm not having God number one, my spouse number two, my kids number three, and then everything else, which the church is in everything else, I'm not leading them well. And I want my wife to love me and love the church and love Jesus. I want my kids to love our family and love the church and love Jesus. And I've got to be able to minister to them well. Now, I wish that I could say that I do that great all the time. I don't. But I know that that's a lesson I need to learn. And if you want kids who love Jesus in the church, then you can't let the church take all of your love. And I think that's super important. So my family is my number one ministry. Number three, never lead alone. I had to learn this big time, right? Because they say that leadership gets lonely at the top, and it definitely is true. It definitely is true. But if you try to lead by yourself, I think you're actually missing out on what God has called us to do, and that's to never lead alone. We have a great team. I'm sitting with part of our great team right now, and I love the fact that I don't have to do it on my own because you guys are amazing. And one of the things I really had to learn, I mentioned I was a campus pastor before I was a lead pastor. When I was the campus pastor at Parkview, I was the kind of the lone wolf. I was the first one. I was the redhead stepchild. I was all the thing. And so trying to learn a lot on my own. And so we had our team, and our church really didn't really know how to do multi-site amazingly at that moment. They do a great job now, but in the moment they didn't know it. But so I was doing everything. And I know you won't maybe know what this is in California in the Central Valley, but there's this thing called snow in the Midwest, and it's white and it accumulates. And I remember I would have to get up at 4 a.m. and before the church service would start, and I would take the little tractor and I'd plow all the streets and plow the sidewalks and salt it and everything before anybody would get there. And I would do so much on my own because we just didn't have the staff and we didn't have all the things. And so there was part of me that when I became the lead pastor, I knew I couldn't do all those things, but there was a part of me that had just been doing them for so long that I just felt like I had to do all of that stuff in some form or fashion. Now, I didn't shovel snow or anything like that, but there was part of me that just felt like I had to do everything. And it was over the years that I just realized that you need to have a really strong team and get out of their way. And if you let them do what they do really well, then the church is going to grow and it's going to be even more successful.
True.
And I hope that what I think I'm leading is how I am leading. And I just want our team, and I want you, and I want everybody, Sean and everybody, to be able to just be experts and be great in what they do, and just let me be the great cheerleader to them, and really see that you guys, be successful in what you do. And the verse that really stuck out to me about that is Exodus chapter 18, verses 13 through 18. This is when Moses had led the people out of Israel, and then they were in the wilderness, and they were setting up shop, and Moses had to deal with these millions of people, and it says in verse 13 through 18, and his father-in-law Jethro had come to visit. And it says, the next day Moses took his seat to serve as a judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law, that's Jethro, saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" Moses answered him, "Because the people come to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it's brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions." Verse 17, I love this. Moses' father-in-law replied, "What you are doing is not good." I always love a good father-in-law quote, right? He says, "You and these people who come to you will only wear yourself out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone." And that verse has always stuck out to me. It's why we got a great team. It's why we want to continue to have a strong team, because lesson number 3, you can't lead alone. I mean, what do you think about that? Leadership alone, and anything what strikes you as far as a leader?
Just wholeheartedly, I think that just trickles down to all of it. Anything you try to do alone, if you can look around and you can see people who can be a part of the team, oftentimes even doing it better than I would be able to do it if I held on to it by myself. And that's, I think, what discipleship is. It's not about proving what God has shown you. It's about pouring into others and investing in them, seeing their potential, having those I see you conversations, raising up other leaders. And hopefully one of them comes and takes our job one day, right? That we've got to invest in. What an honor would that be for God to pour into us, to pour into others, and then to watch them rise up. That would be so cool.
Well, and you, my friend, have done that scarily well, very, very well. You've got so many people. So fortunately, they haven't taken your job because we still love having you around. But
I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, exactly. So hey, let me give you to lesson number 4. Lesson number 4, I've learned: lead with humility. I remember as an athlete that humility was often something that you couldn't have because you had to have the edge. It was always the edge. And it was always about, especially in pro ball, when people would come in, like you were fighting for a job against somebody. It wasn't just a game anymore. Like it was literally your income. It was your job. And so there was this, you had to have a little edge. You had a little bit of swagger. But that's the type of leadership you can't have when you're a lead pastor. You've got to have some humility. And I remember when I first got here, I would pray around the property. I'd walk around the building all the time, and I would pray and pray and pray because I had literally no idea what I was doing. Like literally no idea. And I needed God. I needed God so much in that moment. And so I just very quickly learned humility about that. And Micah 6:8 is such a famous verse, but it just strikes me as so important where it says, "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you?" Here's what God will require: to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And so humility has been something I still have to work on for sure. I think all of us probably do on some level, but I really want to lead with humility, and I think that's super, super important. Lesson number 5 is an interesting one, and these aren't any in particular order, by the way. Just number 5, your time with the Lord can't just be for sermons. I don't think people appreciate, I think you would appreciate how long it takes to just put even one message together. And if you think of doing that 36 to 40 times a year, it gets pretty daunting because my writing process starts anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks out. I mean, I'm several years out as far as what I think that we'll be doing a few years from now. But the actual writing process is anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks. And so if you put it all together, I think your husband, Sean, says soup to nuts. So like from soup to nuts, or maybe, I don't know. Soup to nuts, it's about 20 hours or so. Maybe 20 to 30 hours to put together one message, and that includes research and typing and writing and editing and somebody listening to it, getting feedback back and forth, and so one message takes that long. And so if that's what I've learned, if that's all the time you have with the Lord, which is a lot of time, and I'm not saying that's not with the Lord, it's just not the same as a personal quiet time or a personal time with the Lord. And your devotional time needs to be for your soul and not solely for your sermon. There is Craig Rochelle talks a lot about that if you ever listen to a great leadership podcast, and maybe we can link it down below. But I've learned that I need to take that time for myself to learn about what God's telling me, and sometimes that trickles into my messages, but a lot of times it just needs to trickle into my soul, and I need to be able to hear from him. I walk and I read my Bible and I chew gum and everything while I do that. I've got to be active when I'm doing it, but just even this morning, it just was so encouraging to I was reading the end of Acts at this point and listening to like Paul's journey as he's trying to get to Jerusalem to ultimately be killed, and to think about the shipwrecks and all the things that happen. And we read about that, and if you don't have it in context of his whole life, you don't realize that it's like it's a slow death march that he's going on, and there's shipwrecks, there's people, and yet he's the one encouraging people, and he's the one keeping people together. And so those things are so important for me. It has nothing to do with the sermon. It has everything to do about my soul, and just you can never pray enough in those moments. And so I just need time with the Lord that can just be for me and not for sermons. I think that's lesson number 5. I mean, do you find that in your own life a little bit?
I agree. I can always tell when I'm like, oh, most of my time is just spent prepping versus for just like sitting with God. Yeah. And reading for the sake of getting to know him better versus for the sake of having content.
Yeah. Well, and I love when I let the Bible read me. instead of me reading the Bible. Because if I've learned, if I let the Bible read me, what it's doing is that it's actually teaching me. Like the Holy Spirit is teaching me. And sometimes if I just read the Bible, I'm just going through the motions. I'm clicking the buttons on my app to make sure I get my Bible in a year done. I mean, and I love doing that. I've done that several years in a row. But there's something about if you just chew on it and let the Bible read you for what you're going through that, oh man, it's just so rich. And I need that. I need that. So how about lesson number 6? Lesson number 6 is it sucks when people leave. I'm just going to say that from a leadership role over the past 10 years. It sucks, and there's not a better word for that. So I wish this wasn't true, because I think people often are like, oh, who cares, and what's the deal? Here's the thing. I love people, and I love our church. And when they leave, it just hurts. It just hurts. And a lot of times what happens is that there's no notice. They just leave. You hear through other people that they just leave, or people that you thought were friends just leave. People that you married, they just leave. People that you have done funerals for, they just leave. People that you walk through really hard times for over and over and over, they just leave. During the pandemic, you get to find out that people left on Instagram or Facebook that they were leaving, sometimes the state, but oftentimes your church. And usually, the one that hurts the most for me is like if you see people in the store or in Target or something, and they'll come up, and it's when they were attending your church, it's Pastor Brian or PB, and when they see you now, they just call you Brian, and I have to wrestle with that, because that's probably a humility idol thing for me. But I know instantly if somebody calls me by my first name and not pastor, that they left the church.
It's what it represents, not the title. Yeah, got it.
So there's no more. Yeah, it's and so people nowadays just teach or use church as a Kleenex box. They just kind of pull one out and whatever the next one is, and it's a commodity in there. But in my heart and in our hearts, I think we pour so much into people and love people that when somebody leaves, it's not like just changing your hairdresser or choosing to go to a different gym. Like, we hope that we've created like an experience where people love one another, and that we're doing life together, and that there's community. So when somebody leaves, it really hurts. I've learned that over the years. But I often have to remember what Pastor Dale Barcher, he was the pastor at a small church that I was at in South Dakota. He married Sheree and I. Dale is a great, great guy. But when he heard I was going into ministry, he gave me this line, and he said, here's the only thing that I wish for you. I wish that you have the heart of a lion and the skin of a rhino. And that has always stuck with me, because you have to have the heart of a lion to be able to be in ministry. You just do, because you're getting attacked all the time. It doesn't matter what is happening. Christmas, Easter, it's going to be really bad. Mother's Day, Father's Day, it's going to be really bad. Like, Satan just attacks. But at the same time, you have to have that lion heart that says, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to take the next hill. We're going to fight through it. We're going to see this vision through. But then you have to have the skin of a rhino, that you're going to take some arrows, and it's going to really, really stink when people leave. And there's going to be some hard times that go through it. But you have to have that skin of a rhino to keep going. Because if you don't have the skin of a rhino, if you have the heart of a lion, when those arrows hit, it's just going to wince and it's going to hurt, and you'll bow out. You'll just tap out, because it doesn't make any sense to keep putting yourself through the same thing over and over and over. But if you have the heart of a lion, the skin of a rhino, you just keep charging ahead. And that's helped me when you think about when people leave. So that's number 6 for me. Number 7 is kind of tied with it a little bit, is that you'll never make everyone happy. That might be a shock to you, Heather, because you make everybody happy all the time. But right,
I feel you.
You'll never make everybody happy. When you're following God's call for your life or for the church, it's not going to make everybody happy. You just can't do it as much as you try. When you speak the truth about people's sin in their life, not everybody's going to be happy. Not everybody's going to love that. When you change things, I've found, like if you decide that you're going to change something, you're not going to make everybody happy. Even that great leadership principle that I think I actually learned from John Maxwell, discover the leader within you. Never tear down a fence until you realize what was built. Like, you ask the questions of why before you do, but once you have to start to do it, the change, that not everybody's going to be happy with it. When you chart a new course, not everybody's going to be happy. So, and you know what? This includes other pastors too. I've learned, sadly, that one of the hardest things I think for me has been just wanting desperately to be able to have really good connections with local pastors and pastors around, and just haven't feel like that's taken flight quite yet. And I think it can get better. I've got some great local pastors, a couple of them here or there, but I just would love to see just unity within our churches a little bit more. And sometimes you're not going to make everybody happy, and that's hard to do. But the verse that just keeps moving me forward every single day, Colossians 3:23. This might help you as you're thinking about going to your job or in the middle of your job, whatever it might be. Paul says this: whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. I think that's so important. Know the why of what you're doing. Know that you're not going to make everybody happy, but know that you're not working for them, that you are doing what you do for other people, that if you love the Lord, then you're working for him, not human masters. I mean, your thoughts, what do you think on that?
I mean, agreed. If we're doing it for the people, then you might as well, not for the love of people, but if you're doing it for the accolades of people, you might as well work in a different environment where you could make 3-4 times as much.
Sure.
And do something different, because you could affect people and you could be an excellent leader within the church and outside of the church. If you're doing it for favor and all that, then you're doing it for the wrong reason. I think you're right. Like, you have to, one, have the call from God, and then two, you have to have that heart of the lion, skin of the rhino. Got to follow through with that, knowing that life, I think we can all agree, is a lot more like a roller coaster than this slow uphill ride sliding into heaven at the feet of Jesus. It's mountains and valleys and highs and lows. So I think you have to be able to have that mindset. You can't make everyone happy.
Yeah.
Because if every time I disappointed someone, I was devastated, I would live in devastation.
All the time.
And I try not to disappoint people.
Yeah.
And I still do. So
yeah. Well,
I don't want to live in a pit.
And I have a little of that whole people pleaser type of mentality. Because I mean, who loves seeing people upset? I mean, maybe some people
not
do,
enjoyable.
but I just don't. But then there are times where you have to have hard conversations with people, and you know that they're not going to be happy, but yet you have to speak truth in their life. There's a lot of people that wrestle with church hurt out there, and some of it is real, and I think we've actually spoke about it on a couple episodes before. But this idea that church hurt is not when you're called out for your sin. Like, that's not church hurt. That's just challenge, and that's the Holy Spirit. That's sin. And so when people are upset and call it church hurt because maybe you've been called out on something that in your life that is antithetical to what God would want you to do, you can't blame that on the church. You have to take that up with God. But the church is going to take the abuse and going to take the brunt of it. True. And the leadership will do that actually had the boldness to be able to say, this doesn't align with what God would want for you, and we only bring this up because we love you. So you're not going to make them happy. You just hope that maybe through it, that maybe there's a way they can become more holy, possibly. So
true. And I mean, I think we just have to realize along the way that sometimes you get to be a seed planter, sometimes you get to watch it. So it's unfortunate where you invest a lot, you don't necessarily always see things come to fruition, but to trust God as he, has life running, and it's not us in charge. Thank God.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, let me keep going. Lesson number 8. Lesson number 8 that I got is celebrate before you evaluate. And I think that one's going to stick with me for a long time. Celebrate before you evaluate. Here's a huge leadership mistake and awakening that I had when I was leading. I realized probably 3-4 years in, maybe 3 years, that I was kind of leading like I played baseball. And you probably remember this when we had like a lead team retreat, and then I kind of came back and I talked to the team about it. But what I realized was that I was leading like I was playing baseball. So if I went 2 for 4 in a baseball game, which is 500, that's fantastic. After the game, I would analyze the 2 hits that I didn't get instead of celebrating the 2 hits that I did get. And it was all about this idea of wanting to get better and wanting to do better. And I think what happened is that was really hard on our team. So I had to learn to celebrate before we would evaluate. And we talk about Martha and Mary moments
really
here.
Really good advice.
And so I want us to be able to do that well, that before we go on to the next thing, before we start to evaluate how things went or how it didn't go, celebrate what went well, celebrate the baptism, celebrate this. So we'll figure out why the baptistry had ice cubes in it later. But like for right now, let's just celebrate the fact that God moved in people's lives. So celebrate before you evaluate. That's been huge. We talk Martha and Mary moments a lot around here. The idea that Martha moments are the time when you work up to the thing, like you're getting it ready, and then the Mary moments are the results of what happened as a result of your ministry. So we try to celebrate a lot of Mary moments early, celebrate those, and then we evaluate maybe our Martha moments afterward of how those things could have been done differently. But Leadership 8, celebrate before you evaluate, might be something to think about. And then Lesson 9, ministry. You mentioned a second ago, almost, a ministry is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Mm-hmm. And if you don't pace yourself, you will burn out, and it is very, very real. And those pyramid of priorities are ultimately have to help you with that. There are moments, there's times when you sprint, like Hume time, there's a sprint to the end when you're there, or Christmas or Easter, there's a sprint towards the end, but the marathon pace of just being steady and consistent and doing things early and not having it all built up. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. Because if you ever try to sprint through a marathon, you will die, brother. You will die. So,
I can imagine.
So yeah, and then here's my last one, number 10. After all of that stuff that I just went through, 1 through 9, here's number 10. I love what I do. Lesson number 10 of 10 years of ministry. I love what I get to do, despite the ups and the downs and the long nights and the weddings and the funerals that you never get paid for, and the criticisms that you take, and never being off. I would not trade a second of it for the world. I would rather give my life to the Lord than anything else. And I believe it's the greatest privilege that you can have in the world, is to actually give your entire life. I hope more people will choose to become pastors and student ministers, and we need so many more of those in our life. And that's why I love what our next gen is doing. I love how we're investing in the next generation, because guys, we need more pastors, we need more students, we need student workers, we need it all. Because it is the greatest thing that you can do with your life. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't need Christians in business or Christians in athletic realm, and not that at all. But we need great pastors. We need great student ministries. We need great kids. We need all of that. And so I would just say I love what I get to do. I love who I get to do it with. I love the fact that every day I don't see it as a job. I see it as a privilege. That when I get to stand on that stage and preach, I do so in the power of the Holy Spirit, not my own. And I love to kind of sit back later and hear what people say, like, man, I loved when you said that, knowing I never said that that was what God said. And then just getting a chance to celebrate and evaluate with one of the best teams I've ever worked with in my life. And they're just so fun. And to think that, I think the reason why I could say that is probably the reason why I can't believe it's been 10 years, that it's just been a joy. It's been really, really fun. And if you find the call that God has for your life, you often find yourself feeling like you're almost cheating because it's like, wait, I get to do this? Like, this seems like it's not fair. I think everybody should get a chance. And so I love what I get to do. I love who I get to do it with. And I love the mission that we're on to lead people discover Jesus and follow him fully. I want to see people bought out for Jesus, sold out for Jesus, doing something with what God has called them to do. Tag your it, go do something. And so I'm willing to give the rest of my life to that. And I can't wait to see what God's going to do. So that's 10 lessons from 10 years.
Some good stuff.
So
I do have one thought with one more question. For you,
bring it on.
Okay, so this to me is a great episode for me, at least to be able to share with my friends in ministry.
Sure.
And I know how they say about the first year of marriage can be really difficult as you're learning it out. I imagine the first year, I mean, you haven't said, wow, the first year here was really rough, but I can only imagine the learning curve, especially coming in after the founding pastor. So what's a word of encouragement you might have for somebody who is in paid ministry or non-paid ministry that is listening to your list and says, that's really cool, but I'm just really in a discouraged time right now? What might you leave them with encouragement wise?
Well, I would say one, so I'm in the middle of a sabbatical right now. I would say try to make sure that you have rhythms where you can retreat like Jesus retreated. Okay. He said that he often withdrew to lonely places and prayed and connected with the Father. So I think that's a practical thing that you can do. The other thing that was so important for me and will continue to be so important for me is that I've surrounded myself. I mentioned local pastors, that I've got a couple here or there, but I have got pastors from around the country that I connect with, that I can bounce things off of, that I can have. just don't do it alone. There are so many people. And if you're one of those pastors out there that's discouraged, you call me up. I will talk with you. I'll get you connected. We'll work through some stuff together. I love doing that, but never do it alone. Like, have people that you can just call up or text and say, dude, what do I do about this? Like, my students guy lit the building on fire. What do I do? Like, whatever. Like, you just have to have people around you that you can do this with. And the longer that you try to do it by yourself, the quicker that you'll burn out. And I always come back to this too, that when Jesus was tempted, there were three things that were up against him as he's being tempted. If you remember, he had just gotten baptized. The Spirit leads him to the wilderness. It says for 40 days he fasted. And so until after that point, that's when Satan kind of came and got him. And so if you think about it, he was tired, he was hungry, and he was alone. So I usually think about that, right? So he was hungry because he was fasting. Anytime that you fast, you're not eating, you're going to be tired. And then he was also by himself. And so that was when Satan chose to attack. He didn't try to attack him on day one. He waited till he was nice and worn down, tired, hungry, and then he starts tempting him with, just eat this, you'll feel better, or just this power, you can be over. And so I would just argue this, ask yourself those three questions. Are you tired? Are you hungry? And are you alone? And get people around you to help you kind of work through that. Reach out to us. We'd love to help you, but you can do this, and the call that God has for your life is greater than what you're going through right now. You can do it, and He's going to see you through it.
Man, thank you so much, Brian. This was good stuff. And I'm also excited because I think it will be encouraging for our church to get to hear from you in the middle of your sabbatical. And they didn't even know they were going to get to.
Surprise.
So, surprise. You should all be listening to the 99. Hey, thanks for joining us. As always, the show notes will be listed in the bottom. And don't think we forgot about our Q&A episode. I've got a couple of great pastors here and directors on staff who are helping us out with that. So we didn't forget about you, but we wanted to surprise you with Brian with this guy. So, hey, thanks for joining us. Tag, you're it. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you next weekend at Crossroads on campus or online for one of our 4 weekend services. To view our service times, make sure you check out our website at crossroadsgrace.org. Tag, you're it.